Having a cool camera overlay just gives your stream that extra sense of unique personality. And there are plenty of websites online where you can buy pre-made overlay packages or even find some for free. But the only way to get something truly unique is to either hire an artist or do it yourself. So today I'm going to show you how to do exactly that. Here's an example. All you need is a PC, some creativity, and Blender 3D, which is 100% free. Link in the description to download that. And at the end of the day, the goal of this tutorial is not for you to come up with a carbon copy of whatever I come up with. If you want that, you can just download my file from the Discord. The goal is to give you the tools necessary to create your own overlay. This tutorial is really just a jumping off point, and I can't wait to see what you come up with. That being said, let's get started. My name is Chris Folea. I'm your stream professor. Welcome to StreamSchool. Okay, first things first, in Blender, I'm gonna turn on screencast keys, just so whenever I press a button, you can see what's happening in the lower left-hand corner of the 3D view. That way, just in case I forget to mention something, you can still follow along pretty easily. Next, let's get our file set up for success for making a cool camera overlay. And to do that, we're gonna go to the camera settings first, go down to film, and make sure this renders out with a transparent background by checking this box. Then we're gonna go down to color management and change it from filmic to standard, because we want this to display the full range of colors. We want our colors to be true to whatever we select. If it's filmic, it sort of flattens the color curve, which makes for really good color grading later in photorealistic scenes, but in terms of graphic design and motion media and whatnot, it's just not that great in terms of what we want to accomplish, so change that to standard. Then we want to go down to the lower left-hand corner of the 3D view, click and drag to turn this into 2 panels. Then on this one, hover your mouse over here and hit 0 on the numpad to go to the camera view. Then to get rid of the outlines and the grid and the 3D cursor and all of that, hit the 2 overlapping circles right here. Finally, hold Z, move your mouse over to rendered, and then release Z, and now this viewport will be shown as a shaded view or a rendered view. It'll always show all of our lighting and shadows, which is exactly what we want, so we can constantly have a good idea of what our overlay looks like. Then we're gonna select our camera, go to the camera settings, and change the type from perspective to orthographic. There's not any other way to really explain that other than orthographic flattens it out. It makes it so things further from the camera don't appear any smaller, because we don't want like this really perspective 3D looking thing for our camera overlay. We want it to look flat. So then I'm gonna hit Alt-R to reset the rotation, Alt-G to reset the location, grab my movement widget, and just move the camera up so it's not clipping through our cube anymore. Just give it some height. It doesn't matter how high you put it, because no matter what, everything will appear as the same scale. If you drag it too far, it's easy to lose track of where it is, so don't do that. Then we're going to rotate around maybe some just to get a better view of this scene, but we don't really want this to be a cube. So I'm gonna select that, delete that, then hit Shift A for add, go to mesh and plane. Then we're gonna hit tab to go into edit mode, scale it on up, and we don't want our overlay to be a square, but I also don't think we want it to be a 16:9 rectangle. The problem is a lot of people on Twitch don't crop their cameras even though it's really easy. And the problem with that is that it's just wasted screen real estate most of the time. A lot of people have these wide camera views that show off their dope rooms, but it's just wasted camera real estate. It's not doing anything. So for me personally, I'm gonna scale it up like this. Then I'm gonna scale it, hit S and then X to scale it on the X axis, but I'm not gonna go all the way to a 16:9 outline. I'm gonna keep it a little bit narrower like that, just because I don't personally like wasting screen real estate on my stream, but you can make yours wide if you want to. That is completely up to you. Then I'm gonna hit click to set that in place, and we're almost ready to get started actually working on the overlay. Then we just hit Control R for adding an edge loop. You'll notice that the little yellow line pops up when I hover over an edge, and that's where it's gonna cut a new edge. So if I hover right there and click, it'll cut a new edge, but it's still sliding if I move my mouse. So then I'm going to right click to set that back to the center. So now we just have one new edge added directly down the center. We're going to hit Control R again and do that on this axis as well. Right click to set it. And now we have 4 faces, or 4 squares. Then we're going to hit 3 to go to face select mode, or you can also click this button right here. Then select, shift select, shift select, shift select, then hit I for inset and drag the mouse inwards, and that'll create our border. And you can make this as thick or as narrow as you want. This is essentially how thick your face cam border is going to be. So I'm going to put mine somewhere around there. You can always change this later, and we're even going to be adding detail to it, so don't worry too much about this right now. But then just click to set it wherever you like it best, then hit delete and faces. And that'll give us a nice border like this. Then we can hit 1 to go to vertex select, or this button right here. Then we can hit C for circle select, then click and drag to delete this entire upper corner here. And I'm gonna right click to get out of circle select, hit delete, and go to vertices. And that will leave us with just the bottom corner of our overlay. And I promise I'm going somewhere with this. I'm gonna hit tab to go out of edit mode, click the little wrench right here, go to add modifier and mirror, then select both X and Y. You'll notice we have our entire thing back, but if we hit tab to go into edit mode and we move one of these corners around, you'll notice that it does it on every single axis now. So we only have to work on one corner and the entire overlay gets created. And this setup right here is the brunt of the work. This is essentially where you would want to start in creating your own style of overlay. From this point forward in the tutorial, I'm gonna be working towards creating like a cool 3D mechanical technology sci-fi looking overlay. But I'll point out different tips and tricks and techniques along the way that you can apply to your own style so it matches your stream better. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit 7 to go to the top view, and let's start blocking out the shape. I'm gonna pan around and move down. You notice that we're in perspective right now in the 3D view. So from the top view and I hit 5 on the numpad, I can go to orthographic, which is what we really want. Then I'm going to hit Control R to add another edge loop. You remember we did this earlier. So the yellow line is where it's gonna create the new edge. I'm gonna click and then right click to set that. And I'm gonna move this over like this and add a couple more edges. So maybe like that. And then I'm thinking to make this like a cool looking technology overlay. We can select that vertice and that vertice, then move this down like that. And notice that's starting to look kind of cool. So then over here, I'm gonna select these ones and move them. And from this point forward, just blocking out the shape is a whole bunch of repetitive tasks. So I feel like I don't need to necessarily narrate every single little thing that I'm doing. You do want to be careful to make sure that this isn't a concave face though. So notice how this goes into the face. We want to make sure that doesn't happen. So I'm going to move this out just a little bit, or we can triangulate it. So I'm going to select that point and hit J to triangulate it. Alt A to deselect. And now I'm thinking what might also look cool here is if we made the corners pop out a little bit. So I'm gonna add some more edge loops. Y'all know exactly how to do that. Slide it over, and you can left click to set it where you slide it rather than right click to reset it to the center. You can hit S to scale it, X on the X axis, 0 to 0, and then enter, and that'll give us a straight line. Do the exact same thing on the top, except I'm gonna hit S and Y for the Y axis, then 0. And now we have a corner down here, and I can move these vertices over like this. And I just want to make this look like maybe it's constructed at the corner, so I'll make this a separate piece later. But I'm going to then do let's do another edge loop here. Slide that over. We can slide it all the way to get it straight just like that one, then bring it back some. Do the exact same thing right here. Then we can select vertices and just start moving them around until we like the way that it looks. Again, you focus on making your overlay whatever shape you want to make yours. I'm gonna make mine whatever shape I want. You have complete creative control here. So don't just sit here and copy me. Your overlay shouldn't just end up looking exactly like the one I'm creating. But I'm just gonna manipulate the shape to whatever I want. And I'm thinking that that looks like a pretty cool, pretty cool looking sci-fi kind of overlay. Maybe even make this diagonal. Ooh, I like the diagonal corners like that. So I'm gonna select this vertex right here, shift select this one, Alt M for merge, and at last, which means the last vertex that I selected. And that'll give us a nice diagonal right here like that. And you'll notice again, it happens on every single corner at the exact same time. And this is a cool shape, but it's a one flat color right now. So to change that, I'm gonna split this up into pieces. But before we get there, I want to make this overlay sort of 3D. I want to give it some shape. And since we're in orthographic view on the camera, I don't want to give it like a ton of depth. I don't want to make it look like a tunnel, like a perspective tunnel, but I do want to give it a little bit of depth to make the lighting pop. And for that, we're going to add a bevel. Unfortunately, this is a very flat object, so we can't bevel it. So to fix that in a non-destructive way, I can hit Tab to go outside of edit mode, go to the modifiers panel, which is the little wrench, go to add modifier and solidify. Then I'm going to go down to the solidify modifier that just appeared. Up here is still the mirror modifier. Scroll down here to where it says offset, and we're gonna change that to 0, and I'll show you why. If we add thickness to it right now, you notice that it just extrudes straight down. Well, I went a little bit far, or finished with my mouse some, but you notice it just goes straight down. I want the thickness to happen from the center outward. So if we set offset to 0, you'll notice that now it scales up and down. So it puts our face in the center, which is what we kind of want. And you can add any thickness you want to this. It's not gonna matter since we're in orthographic, we're not gonna get a weird tunnel effect. Then on top of that modifier, you can shrink these down with the arrows. We're going to add a bevel modifier. And you'll notice that that adds a little bit of highlights and shadows to the edges. However, you'll also notice that it's beveling these edges as well. And we don't want that. That's kind of odd. That kind of looks weird. It looks bad. We only want to bevel the really sharp corners, like the 90-degree corners. So to do that, you can go to the limit method on the bevel modifier, hit angle, and let's change it to 85 just to cover a little bit more than just the corners. So if we turn this, looking right here, if we turn this to none, you notice that we get extra bevels, which rounds this out, which looks bad. If we turn on the limit, now it's only beveling the hard corners. And then we can change the offset amount so it bevels less. And you'll notice that this slides really fast when you slide your mouse like this. If you want to slide in smaller increments, hold shift while you slide it, and you'll find that you have a lot more control. And you don't want to go crazy with a bevel. You just want it to look like it adds a little bit of an edge like this. So now if we zoom out, it gives like the sense of depth, but it's not going overboard, which is exactly what we want. Maybe even just a little bit thicker, but again, it's really easy to go overboard with a bevel. So now we're gonna start splitting this up and adding some interior lines and detail. And to do that, we're gonna go to the edit mode by hitting Tab, and we can turn off the bevel. I can say we can turn it off, or we can turn these off in the modifiers off in edit mode, just so we can actually see our faces. But that makes it so we can't see the bevel while we're in edit mode. So I'm gonna leave these on, but I'm gonna hold Z and go to wireframe mode so I can actually see my object here. Then I'm going to, I think I'm gonna add some extra edge loops, slide that all the way over, and slide it out some, just to give us a little bit more corner there, like so. Then I'm going to select those two vertices, hit F3 to bring up the search menu and type edge split. And you'll notice that now each of these are separate pieces. Essentially, it split the edge, which also, because of our bevel modifier, created an extra outline piece. It created an interior edge or outline. It looks very mechanical and sci-fi-ish. And we'll do the exact same thing with these ones, F3 edge split. And that's starting to look pretty cool. So let's do the exact same thing for this piece right here. I'm gonna select this vertex, hit K, move it until it snaps, click, and drag out like that maybe. click again and hit enter, and that'll add another cut. K stands for knife tool, by the way. Now that I have these two vertices selected, I can hit F3, edge split, and now we're splitting this up and it looks sort of like sci-fi mechanical detail. And then we probably want to manipulate the shape some too. So for that, we can hover over this object right here, hit L, that'll select just that object. Do the exact same thing with the centerpiece, hit P and separate selection. Then you'll notice that we can no longer manipulate these in edit mode, we're only editing the thin rails. So I'm gonna tab out, select just this one. So now we're only editing this guy. We cannot accidentally select the thin rails, which is what we want here. So then I'll select these vertex points. And again, this is all personal preference to whatever shapes you want to create on yours. I'm just trying to show you the different tools that might be useful for that. I'm gonna move these around just a bit. And I think that looks pretty cool. Now it looks like a cap piece almost. The other benefit we have to splitting this, I'm gonna do the exact same thing over here. Try to keep these lined up on the edges so there isn't like too much mesh collision or anything. Cool. So now the other benefit to this is if we go back to shaded mode, you'll notice that these are all the same thickness, but I want these to look like these pieces are holding the frame together. So I'm gonna go ahead and make these even a little bit thicker. So when we add some ambient occlusion and shadows and stuff later, it'll have a little bit of an effect on it. So I'm gonna go to the solidify modifier and just change the thickness up a little bit, like so. Which again, you'll notice doesn't have much of an effect here, but it's beneficial a little bit later. So then if I go to the top view, we're also going to get rid of the bevel on the end there by just moving these in, like so. And again, I keep repeating this, but I'm just working on what I wanted this overlay to look like and showing you sort of the tools that are available at your disposal. So another thing you'll notice is that these are no longer matching. So you can just move this up a little bit until it matches, or we can select both of them and hit S for scale, Y and then for Y-axis, and then 0, and that'll flatten that right out. But overall, it's looking kind of cool. It's basic, and I would usually spend a lot more time detailing this up. But let's move on to shaders to make this look even cooler. So we're gonna select the rails right here, go to the materials panel, and hit new. And it's worth mentioning at this point that there are two different shaders that you would want to use in Blender when working on an overlay. The first is the principled shader, because that covers all your bases. You can make metals, you can make glass, or maybe, I don't know if you can actually do glass. Maybe. You can do plastic. You can do all sorts. You can do any kind of material you want. You can do subsurface scattering for skin, whatever. It covers all the bases. But you have this really large list of shaders here in Blender, and you don't need to pay attention to any of these for what we're doing today. Just the principled BSDF and the emission shader is the other one. Emission is it's the only one. Emission will make your objects flat. It will make it a solid color or whatever texture you apply to it. So if you want to make something that looks more like it was done in Illustrator, like it's 2D and has outlines and stuff, you would use emission shaders for that to make the solid colors. I'm gonna stick with the principled shader today, just to have that cool shaded look, so it looks a little bit 3D and sort of sci-fi like. But I'm gonna change the base color of this to blue. Maybe like a nice blue like that. You can make yours whatever color you want. Then I'm gonna select the lights and move it around, and you'll notice that this behaves and it looks sort of like plastic. If we go to rendered over here, you notice it looks kind of like plastic. It doesn't look particularly special or interesting, but we do get kind of a nice gradient from the light. And you can move the light wherever you want. You can even animate the light if you want to in the end. But you notice it looks kind of plasticky. And to fix that, we just go to the metallic slider and slide that up. The only difference between a metal object and a plastic object, or any other object, is that metal, the highlight that's created by the light is the same color as the object, while on plastic or something, the highlight is generally white. So that's the difference between something that looks metallic and something that looks plastic. But I'm gonna move this around until we get something that looks relatively cool. Again, I'm sort of speeding through this at this point because I've already taken up enough of your time here. But then I'm gonna take these again. And again, it's really easy to add details to this. I can just hit Control R to do the edge split, F3 edge split, Control R, F3 edge splits, and now we have like a cool sort of metal beam kind of look. So then we're gonna take these and we'll add a nice rubber material, something like this. Then we can up the roughness, and we can lower the specular to make it a little bit of a flatter sort of look. And when I'm working with these, by the way, and I use lights, I'm usually not gonna use a point light, I'm usually gonna use an area light. The cool thing about area lights, if I hit Alt-R to reset the rotation, make it point straight down, is I can scale this up or down. If we have more light coming from more points on the screen, you end up with softer overall lighting. And it just, in general, looks nicer. And you can also scale it more on one axis than the other. Overall, I think this is looking pretty neat. I'm gonna mess with the materials a little bit more on some of these pieces. And then one more thing we might want to add to sort of a sci-fi overlay like this, after we mess with the shape just a little bit more, which I'm a perfectionist, by the way. I don't know if you could tell, but I go way too hard on these things. I think we move these up a little bit more. Again, I'm just messing with my points here. You can do yours however you want. No, I don't like that. Again, a lot of art is just trial and error until you get something you like. Just mess with it, see if you like with it, mess with it some more, mess with it some more, mess with it some more, and just until you get something that you like. So finally, we might want to add like some little lights or something to this. And for that, let's say we want to add like a little light. Let's say I want to add a couple lights right here. I'll show you one other useful tool you can use in Blender. So I'm gonna hit Shift A, Mesh and Plane to add a plane here. Gonna add a new material. We'll make this one an emission, so it's a solid color. Gonna make this blue to match my general aesthetic. Then I'm gonna move this over here, scale it down, scale it on the x-axis, so it's sort of like a line. Then we can move this up, which since the whole thing is orthographic, it doesn't matter where it is vertically as long as it's above the object. I'm gonna go into edit mode, make this a little bit of a diagonal, like so. Then we can take this, hit the wrench, go to add modifier and array, and just add a few more lights. So now we have 3 lights over here on this side. So then the one other thing about this design is how symmetrical it is, and a lot of people might not like that. So how you can fix that, now that we've got the basic shape blocked out, is let's say we want this part to not be beveled, but we do want this part to be beveled. So I would select the object, go to the mirror modifier now, and hit apply. So now this modifier is completely applied. Anything I do right here is not going to change on the rest of the object. So now I can drag this down like that. And now we have a good place to put these lights if I scale them down. Like so. And you can add all sorts of different details and things that you want on yours, but I think this is pretty close. Maybe I'll divide this in a couple more areas. So I'll just select these vertices and these vertices, hit F3 edge split to divide that. That looks kind of cool. I'll do that on the bottom as well. So maybe I'll cut like here, hit F3 edge split, select these ones, F3 edge split, just to add some more interior lines to this overlay. Do the exact same thing here. And again, y'all have done this a million times in this tutorial by this point, so this should be second nature. This is all just adding additional details to the overlay. And you don't have to make it symmetric. You can make this only happen on one corner, maybe not another. Like if the whole thing's symmetrical, it might look kind of whack anyway. But in general, one last thing you might want to do is add your logo to your overlay. And I'll show you how to do that before we peace out, but this has already been a little bit longer than I was anticipating for the tutorial, but I can just go to Edit, Preferences, go to Add-ons, and in the search bar type Image, and make sure Import, Export, Import Images as Planes is checked. Escape out of that. Then go to File, Import, Images as Planes. I don't know why it's not in my folder for this, but I'll just go to that folder. And right here I have my fish logo, and I imported that a little bit wrong. What you're going to want to do is File, Import Images as Planes, and you're going to want to find your image, of course. Oh man, I cannot do that any more wrong. But you're going to want to change this to Emit instead of Principled, so it comes in as a solid color. Then Import Images as Planes. It'll come in, and you can just place this anywhere you want on your overlay. If I want to put this up top, like so, we can do that. I don't think this really fits in this overlay, but I just figured I'd show you how if you wanted to. You can also try putting this on the bottom. And we can even make our overlay shape match it a little bit better if we really wanted to. For that, I would do another mirror. That's one way you can incorporate your logo into your overlay as well. So that being said, for half an hour of work, it's not too shabby. Obviously, you would want to spend more time just detailing it up, adding additional details. You can do all sorts of things. You can add wires, you can add additional colors and segments and things. But overall, that is how you can set up and create an overlay in Blender 3D, which again is completely free. How cool is that? Finally, to export this, all you have to do is go to your camera settings, and export settings. You notice this is rendering out to 1920 by 1080. That's really big. So this is only going to take up a small portion of your screen, so you probably want to do like 50 or 25% for this. But anyway, then you're also going to want to take your camera and match the width of your overlay as well, so you don't have these wasted transparent pixels that take up CPU cycles in OBS. So for that, we can go down to our camera settings. Oh no, we just go up here to the render settings again and change the X resolution to make the aspect ratio match. Then you go to your camera settings and change the orthographic scale to zoom in until it's pretty close. Then all you have to do is hit F12 to render and go to Image and Save As. Find a folder on your computer that you like. Hit Save As Image, and now you have an overlay. Again, hopefully yours looks different than mine. I wouldn't in any stretch of imagination call this done, but that is how you make an overlay in Blender. The next step is honestly just to take it into OBS, which I can't show you right now because my streaming PC is currently dead, so I'm recording this all on one PC and I can't record OBS with OBS. That's pretty much it. Mess around with it, guys. Mess with the details. Come up with your own creative looking thing. I showed you how to move the points around and create the basic outline. Now it's up to you to create something that works really well for your stream. And that's all there is to it. If you found this video helpful, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button for new content every single week. And if you want to download my files or show off your own unique creations, make sure you join our Discord community. Link in the description below. Also, come say hey over on Twitch. I'm live every Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday at twitch.tv/oraclefishlive. We genuinely have an incredible community. And if you have any questions, comments, or topics that you want me to cover, leave those in the comments below the video. Until next time, my name is Chris Folea. I'm your stream professor. Class is out.